Hi kids! Welcome to my channel. Charot. Ito. So welcome to the economic development subject. This is my pre-recorded PowerPoint presentation for module 2, which is measuring a nation's income. Okay? So in this um, video, we are hoping to have answers to these following questions. So these are our learning objectives. Okay, the first one is, what is gross domestic product or the GDP? How is GDP related to a nation's total income and spending? What are the components of GDP? How is GDP corrected for inflation? And the last one is, does GDP measure society's well-being? So throughout our lecture, throughout this video, I am hoping that you will be able to answer these questions. Okay? But before we go to our full-blown discussion, I think it would be worth spending a few moments emphasizing the difference between the microeconomics and the macroeconomics. I think these words are all familiar to you way back in your senior high. Andiyan mo ingon na pud na ron nga, wa man mi kahibaw, ma'am. Nakalimot na mi, ma'am. That's a very familiar statement. Anyway, microeconomics deals with the study of how individual households and firms make decisions, interact with one another in a market. I think you already know what a market is. No? How jung bagon jud o sa mga di kay bawog unsa ng market oy, or sakit na just sa banks. Okay, so when we say microeconomics, it studies how individual, meaning to say the part of a big picture. So microeconomics studies how individual household and firms interact within the market, while macroeconomics is the study of the whole economy. So if you're going to imagine it in a graphical or a picture, so ang this is the microeconomics, no? Ang gagmay-gagmay, the small parts. And then the macroeconomic is the study of the whole economy. Okay? So I think we don't need to really go into deeper on this topic because humana ni sa inyong senior high. Okay? So microeconomics seeks to answer the following questions. So I will just give you a little bit of overview. Okay, so for microeconomics, they seek answer to the following question. How do consumers decide how much of each goods to buy? How do firms decide how much output to produce and what price to charge? What determines the price and quantity of individual goods and services? How do taxes on specific goods and services affect the allocation of resources? And then for macroeconomics, it seeks to answer the following sample questions. How do consumers decide how to divide their income between spending and saving? What determines the total amount of employment and unemployment? What determines the overall level of prices and the rate of inflation? Why does the economy rather go through cycles where things are great for a few years, like the 90s, and then lousy for a year or two, like 2001 or 2002? Okay? And the last one is, when unemployment is high, what can the government do to help? So from the sample questions that each component of the economy is trying to seek answers with, makahibaw na ka the difference between the micro and the macro. So kung kag micro, it is the smaller picture while the macroeconomics deals with the bigger picture of how the economy moves. Okay? Okay. So, let us come to the income and expenditure and what does it have to deal with the GDP. Okay? So, GDP or the gross domestic product measures total income of everyone in the economy. That is just some sort of a given definition, but not technically. No, we will go through the unsa ka jud ang GDP as we go a long way. Mura na siya og more bag a sort of bunjag sa imuha. Like, for example, ikaw, your real name is, what is your real name? Ako nalaman, kay I'm not yet familiar with your names. So, for example, ako, my real name is Modena, but then, ila kong gidagnayan with eng. So inga na siya. Gross domestic product measures total income of everyone in the economy, but that is not exactly how it should be defined. But anyway, moabot na tayo nga na. Chill rang mind. Okay? So, GDP measures two things at once: the total income of everyone in the economy and the total expenditure on the economy's output of goods and services. So, the GDP measures two things at once. So, inigkwinta ni mong GDP, mukwinta pag kuno ka og duha ka factors in the economy at once. Ang income and the expenditure. Why? Nga naman, how can GDP compute both at the same time? Be. Kisa may mo answer. Joke. Mura po. This is the downside of online classes. Kawadyo mo tubag na ho. Anyway, we will discuss more of that in the I will leave that question in your mind for now. So we will have a thorough discussion how can a GDP measure two things at once. Okay? So let me tell you a story, charot. It's a story. Actually, it's just a realization. Okay? Diba, a good way to judge how well someone is doing economically is what? So, essential pagtuon. So, ano pagkaibang, hala, dato man ni si Kuan. Hala, dato na lagi ni si Kuan. How are you going to gauge that? What is your measuring tool? What is your sa tawag na unsa imong ilhanan nga makain ko nga uy si Rexel lagi kay mas dato or doing economically well kaysa ni kanang mabaylan. I don't know kung naaba ni silang mas jantiha ani nga economic development. Anyway, so inga na unsaon man nimo? So how do you determine which is having or is enjoying a more economical advantage? So 'di ba ang ilang income? Right or wrong? 'Di ba? Income man jud na. So kung kakaron nga ang income ni Juan is bigger than the income of Pablo, of course, Juan is economically doing well compared to Pablo. So, inga na ka simple, inga na ka payak, inga na ka basic, di ba? So, inga na po ang country. So, if you are going to measure how well a country is doing, check their GDP. So, naman mong GDP, be, pilay income sa kada usa ka tawo in that particular country. Is it high? Is it low? So, you can tell. No? You can tell from there. Diba? Okay. GDP also measures total expenditure on the economy's output of goods and services. GNS is, it stands for goods and services. So, in accounting man jud mo no. So, kay bago jud mo nga ni nga in accounting unsa na statement or whatever it is. So, an income should equals expenditure, or else if the income is more than the expenditure you have, unsa man? Very good. When the income is lower than the expenditure, what do you have? Very good. Diba? Saving and utang. So, kung ang imong expenditure, your expenses is more than your income, so mahitabo, loan diri, loan didto, diba? Experience na mo. Utang diri, utang didto. Kuwangan ang bound tungod kay mopalit og sabon nga kojik. Bisag nag unsa na mura nagway kaon sa kaputi, sige palit ka hapon kojik aron mo puti. Bisag kuwangan ang allowance, mangutang sa classmate. Your income, your allowance is, could be considered as your income because you were students. So your income does not equals expenditure. So if you want your economic activity to be balanced or in equilibrium, you need to maintain income equals expenditure, or much better if you have higher income and less expenditure, so you will have savings, and that is on the side of the consumer. But on the side of the economy, di sad siya maayo nga magsige mo og save. Leave that question in your mind. Nga naman ma'am, di dahil no. I know that. Okay, chill your mind. Reserve that on the topic. Di pa man mo itong topic. This is introductory. Okay? So, say for example, nalabad si E. Okay. Gets na eh. Okay, now let us go to the circular flow diagram. Okay. The circular flow diagram is a simple depiction of the macroeconomy. So, when we say circular flow diagram, it represents how the economy moves. Macro, not the micro. Okay? It illustrates, haraman hong kopya tayo sa it illustrates GDP as spending, revenue, factor payments, and income. Now, when we say factor payments, when we say factor production, these are inputs like labor, land, capital, and natural resources. Do I really need to expound on this? I think no, and naman is inyong applied economics before. Now, the factor payments are those, factor payments are payments for the factors of production. So, say for example, you're going to utilize the land, the labor, the capital, the natural resources. So, you need to pay, diba? So, mo na gitawag na to factor payments. Okay. Why am I balik-balik in the circular flow diagram? So, nag-una daay ko ganina. Nalabad si ini. Okay. So, in a circular flow diagram, nawa na ko. Tayo sa ha. Sakto lagi. In a circular flow diagram, there are two main players. Okay? The household and the firm. Sila jud na ang dasbida sa circular flow diagram. Unsa pa gani ng circular flow diagram? Why are we studying this? Data. Okay, it is a simple depiction of the macroeconomy. Okay? So, household owns the factor of production. They sell them or they rent them to firms for income. So, say for example, ako, am I a factor of production? Yes. Nga naman, the college umaasin, rent. Rent, ba tawag anak? Technically, I don't know, not really. Oh, yeah, gihuman nila akong capacity to teach para gamiton nila in order to produce services. Kay ang college umasin naga-offer man og educational services. So they are renting my ability to teach, no? The factor ay ang one of the daghan si ikog kuan uy kanang si nganani bloopers pasensya na kayo. Okay. Anyway, back to the topic. Okay, so household owns the factors of production. They sell or rent them to firms for income. So, for example, ako, I am a household because I own the capacity to teach. So, ang college umaasin, mo rent sila sa capacity to teach so that they can offer services such as education, di ba? And then at the same time, I also buy and consume goods and services. 'Di ba? Kung mo-work ko, I need shampoo. Kaya saan na lang magoy kaligo si ma'am? Bintaha ron kay online man. Wa may makasimhot. Okay, ang aho pang lotion, charot, green silk, uban pang malang mananap that I need in order to function well. So, ako na maligya sa akong talent, or di po talent, capacity, para maka-income ko, but at the same time, mupalit ko o goods and services in order to function well. So there is now a combination of an income and an expenditure. Diba? Gets? Okay. While firms, on the other hand, buy or hire factors of production and use them to produce goods and services. So, muna itong example. Ako ang household, ang college umasin ang firm. Sila'y mo palit or mo hire or mo rent sa factors of production such as land, labor, capital, intellectual capacity, unsa pa na diha. Okay? And then firms also sell goods and services, which entails an income. Anong income man? Kung makabaligya sila og goods and services, of course, that is revenue on their side. And then, kung mo palit sila o mo buy sila o mo hire sila factors of production, that is an expenditure. So, kani silang duha, they would always be together to form up the macroeconomy. Without the buyer and the seller, the macroeconomy is nothing. Diba? Okay? Okay. So, unsaon man pagpalit sa firm, sa factors of production, and unsaon pud sa household pagbaligya sa ilang factors of production. Do they have to meet halfway? Of course. Asa man in the market. So naay market for factors of production. No? So ang household mubutang or ma-auction or mo-display whatever it is sa ilang factors of production such as the land, labor, capital, nga rin sa market for factors of production so that the firms can avail the factors of production because they are necessary to process, no? Necessary ang factors of production in processing nga mo process sila to produce goods and services. So kani siyang red line mo na siya ang movement of the factors of production. Okay. Unsa ang firm pod, so nanginahanglan sila og factors of production na aman diha sa market for factors of production ang factors of production naglibog na mo kadaghang factors of production. Of course, the firm that will avail the factors of production in the form of wages, rent, or even profit. Ganong profit man? Be. Wala, sige, hunahuna ang anong profit. And of course, sa household, it constitute an income. Anong income ang po? Tungod kay bayaran sila sa firms for the factors of production. Okay, now let us go to the other end of this um, circular circular flow diagram. Actually, what's the end? I meant the arrows. Okay? So, kung naay market for factors of production, napoy market sa goods and services. Kay iasa man as a firm, ang ilang gi-produce nga good and services, kung dili nila ibaligya, what's the point of renting, buying the factors of production so that they can process for a goods and services kung dili nila ibaligya. Sumo nang napud si jay market for goods and services wherein the household can avail the goods and services in a form of spending because the household will pay so that goods and services will be delivered to their house or nila, and then it is a revenue on the side of the firms. Nga naman, of course, di na naangay ikatingangan ng revenue. Naagoy halin, 'di ba? So, mo na si siya, ingana gajud na ang circular flow of diagram in a very basic, simple situation. But we all know that there's no such thing as simple thing in earth. Bisan ang gugma, dili gyud ingana ka straight ang agi, di ba? Najunay third party. There's always a third party. Nga na, di lagi mag party-party karong way third. Bitaw. Okay, so what does this diagram, ang katong circular flow ang giminha, what does this diagram omit? So, unsa may gikuha, unsa may wa didto, unsay kuwang, ano bang kulang, charot. Okay? What is lacking? So, supposedly, mangutana pud mo, napud mo yung question, dili ra mo sa inyong uyab or sa inyong relasyon, mangutana anong kulang? Should also be use your analytical mind to question ingana ra jud ay ka simple ang circular circular na di na ako katigom hilwas. Okay, circular flow diagram ingana ra jud ay ka simple. Nganong kinahanglan mga estudyuhan og mga economists, mga experts ingana ra makaka-simple. Technically, dili jud. Walay simple sa kalibutan. Okay, so what does this diagram omits? Okay, the first thing is the government. Di ba? Dito ang government. Onya, kay dako gyud part ang government sa macroeconomy. Why? Because they are the one who collects taxes and also they are part of the buyer. Mupalit man sad ng government of goods and services so that they can provide to the population, di ba? Na ay mga pangpalito ng mga goods mga government nga goods and services para for the consumption of the society. Okay? And then another is the financial system. O, di ba? Kadto mga pautang, mga loan shark, mga tag, ang sa pa na, 5, ang sana, 5 by 6. Murag size. 5, 6. Okay? So, financial systems, only those that are, kuan ha, ang gimin ani. Way labot mga 5, 6. Kana bang, financial, registered financial institutions ha. Oh, financial systems match a saver supply of funds with borrowers' demand for loans. Okay, so, di ba, kung naakay dako, kung dako ang imong income, anya gamay ang imong expenditure, you have savings. Kung unya, kung di na nimo kung magsige kag save, di ka mo spend, wa pod ang economy mag unsa na mo muhijos pod ang circular, so anha mo sod ang financial system murag si mo inject, no, kay ikaw imong gikuptan, say for example naka 100 pesos ang imong income, and then di ka instead nga mo palit ka goods and services nga 100 pesos pod tungod kay you are thinking about saving 50 ray mo igasto, so instead ang balance unta to, di ba? We were talking about equilibrium. Balance unta to nga naay spending, napoy income, di ba? Income equals expenditure. So, balance unta to, di na karon balance kay 50 ra may imong gigasto. So, anha mo sod ang financial system. Anyway, we will have a comprehensive discussion about this topic. More introductory pa ni sila, okay? So, chill rang mind, okay? And of course, the foreign sector, the trade, goods and services, financial assets, and currencies with the country's residents. Actually, this is a very lisod na topic. I don't think, mo nag-iingon nga, ano, let's go together hand in hand, charot. Okay, so let us now clearly define what is really gross domestic product. Okay, so it states here, Mankyo defined the gross domestic product to be the market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. Simple, di ba? Understandable? Understandable, de. Understandable, oy. Ang GDP ko no, tanan nga market value of all final goods and services produced within a country in a given period of time. Now, let us digest the components of this definition. Okay, the first one is the market value. What do you mean by market value? Kabaw naman tatanan no? Unsa nang market value? Oops, ning sobra. Okay. So, market value, unsa nang market value? Ikapoy na si Iko. Ika mo na pod. My God, this is the downside of online no interactive discussion. Jadi man nagita pwede pod sa Zoom kay we only have 30 minutes and this is more than 30 minutes. So di ta pwede adto dito sa Zoom magklase. Okay. So when we say market value, goods are valued at their market prices. So wait ha. Okay, so you probably heard this particular saying na mingag, you can't compare apples to oranges because an apple has a different value compared to oranges. But in GDP, mo na yung gibuhat. GDP actually adds together many different kinds of product into a single measure of the value of economic activity. To do that, he uses, or the GDP uses its market prices. So, say for example, mayon ka nga, um, an apple has a market price of 10 pesos, you know, 10 pesos per piece. Unya, ang oranges has a market price of 20 pesos each. Di ba mo anak ko, hala, anong mahal man hinuon ang orange kaysa apple? Nga, mas gwapa man ang apple, mas daghan man siyang vitamins and everything under the sun. So, mayon ka, nganong di man sila parehas, nga parehas raman fruits, di ba? But you can't do anything about that because that is the prevailing market price. When we say prevailing market price, that means mauna ang pre, uh, pre, mauna ang price wherein the consumers are willing to pay. So kung may kakaroon nga ang the market price of apple is 10 pesos per piece, di mamaligja ay kag apple may ka nga, nay, di ko, uy, gikan siya hong apple sa America. Ning bayad pa ko anig kanang, unsay nga anak, kanang bayad sa pagpadala, ning bayad pa ko og kanang unsa pa nang ipangbayaran aron moabot diri sa Pilipinas sa 10 pesos ra kantidad. Gana di ko ibalik dyan na hog 25. Do you think na mo palit? Like, yeah, maybe na ay mo palit ito mga artihon pod nga. Uy, kani kay gikan sa US imported charva. But technically, in an economy, in the pursuit of computing the GDP, o pila ang market value ni dya, maura jud nay computon sa GDP. Di naman yun ang GDP nga, ay, gikan mo ni sa Thailand, ay, gikan mo ni sa kuan. Or, ang raw materials ani paghimo is, mao ni, dili mo nga ang GDP. O unsay naa sa market, o unsay market value sa imong goods and services, lamsam ra na siya inig kwenta. Okay? Because market prices measure the amount the people are willing to pay for different goods. They reflect the value of those goods. So as I have said before, ang kanang market price mo na determinants, no? Determinants kung um how much at how much are the consumers willing to pay for that particular product. So mao na nga mahimo na siya mo imong product value. Kay bali mo imong mahimong value sa goods and services. Regardless og unsa pay materials ni ana. A great example of that is ganing mga underrated phones, no nga. I don't know ha because I don't own one. Ingon sila kani ko ng Realme is a very kanang ko ana brand of phone kanang say tawag ana makakompete po daw siya sa iPhone. I don't know if it is true. So kung murag inga na ba example, but in the market a Realme phone cannot compete in terms of value with an iPhone. Di ka jud, no, di ba? Mas barato jud ang Realme tungod kay mao manay market price sa Android nga mao diha ra jud ang ceiling nila, diha ra jud ang ilang floor. So mao na nga di ka makaingon nga uy kuan man ng Realme dapat mahal ni. Oh, you cannot do that. You cannot do that. Okay? Okay. Ano pa ay things that don't have a market value are excluded. Examples are housework,